We were betting on how many people would come to this talk because nobody comes to maintainer track talks. And Xander bet less than 7, and we have unfortunately beat that number. So
thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to SIG Docs and Modernizing API Reference Generation. My name is Kat Cosgrove, and I work for Wayland Yutani.
I am Xander Grzywinski, and I currently work for Shinra.
Oh, I guess I should mention that we're both SIG Docs technical leads, which is obviously why we're giving a talk on the maintainer track. But we're going to talk about the process for generating the API reference docs for Kubernetes and kubectl. First, I'm going to describe the current process. Note that everything I'm going to go through here is something that has to be done twice, once for Kubernetes and once for kubectl, which is lovely and not at all inconvenient. So, the first thing we have to do is create a local workspace and set our Go paths, and then get a local clone of several repositories. This starts out pretty easy, pretty straightforward. This is all documentation from the Kubernetes website. You also need the K website repo and the KK repo, which you have to rename for some reason that remains a mystery to me, because I did not build this tool. And then we have to set some confusing build variables that will repeatedly be a problem for you while you're trying to do this entire process. It's worth noting that this tool is actually a bash script that calls a Python script that calls several Go scripts, which is normal and sensible way to build software. This has to be done for every single release twice, so we need a versioned directory, and we've got to fetch the open API spec. This is also pretty easy. At this point, things are going well. You're not going to run into any problems just yet. All of this is going to go smoothly, but it will go off the rails pretty rapidly. This is where things start to go off the rails. I am not quite sure why this tends to fail so hard, but it does every single time. All we're doing is making the copy API and generating those 2 files, but this is usually going to barf. This is straightforward. We're just modifying some markdown, but this does have to be done for every single release. It is manual. It is annoying. It is consistent across releases. You always have to do this. So it does seem like a thing we could automate, or a thing that could be handled by like a flag when you're running these operations the first time. But instead, we're opening a markdown file and changing the exact same thing every time, twice. This will fail every single time. You need to locally test the API reference. This is not going to work reliably. I think it used to a long time ago, before things got more complex. This process used to work well, but it no longer does. As soon as you try to actually update and build all of this and then locally test the API reference, it starts to fall apart pretty irreversibly. So the process as it's documented makes it look like it's very easy. It makes it look like it's very clear. It gives you expected inputs and expected outputs. And you would think that that's the way things actually work, because we're SIG Docs, right? We're responsible for the docs, so surely our own docs are good. Alas, that is untrue. So this thing fails regularly. It does not have helpful or coherent error messages. You are almost certainly going to have to read a stack trace to find out where something actually failed, and God help you when you're trying to figure out why it failed. It is very expected that you're going to require manual fixes to generated files that humans should not be touching, because they're generated files, and there is no documentation to guide you. This is essentially only doable by 1 or 2 people, the 1 or 2 people who built and maintained this tool. Xander and I can't do it. We've tried, and we're technical leads. We should be able to do it, but we can't, because all of these failure modes are undocumented, which is not great. The code itself is also almost entirely undocument it. This is obviously not at all in line with our ideals as a project, or especially as a SIG, seeing as, once again, we are SIG Docs, and we don't have docs.
All right, so now that you understand that this is a perfect process, 10 out of 10, no notes, I'm going to talk about what some of the goals look like going forward and how we'd like to ideally change things. So when we think about, how we operate as a SIG, we would love for new contributors to be able to get in and play with like the reference docs. We often get a lot of new contributors in SIG Docs. It's like one of the SIGs that contributors often start with. And it would be cool if this code wasn't like a rat king that they couldn't interact with at all and was something that we could actually use to bring people into the project with and get them up and running with. In the past, these docs had always been generated by the release team on a release. And as you can see, that process, as it's broken, can't be done by the release team anymore. Can't be done by me and Kat. There is one, maybe two people that can do it, depending on the day or availability. Yeah, it's deep magic. I don't entirely know. But that's the goal for us, is to get it back to the release team being able to do this generation. I don't have a lot to say here. This is like bar on the ground. As Kat said, we're SIG Docs. We should have it documented. There should be some comments in the code, and yeah, that's that. How can you help? So this is actually the moment when you find out that you've all been lured into a cry for help. That's what this talk is. So I think a good way for contributors to like start helping out with this is something as simple as like improving the existing thing that we have. And that's as simple as going through and adding comments to the existing code, or cleaning up things where they could be better, maybe reducing the ways in which Bash calls Python calls Go. I think there's a lot of room to take what we have and make it a little bit cleaner. And yeah, we would love to have some new contributors to the SIG explore that. And then this is the ideal future state, high apple pie in the sky goal. We would love to actually proceed with a full rewrite at some point in the future. And this is something that we would love to get some contributors jumping in to maybe start thinking about the design for this and what it could look like. And so if folks are interested, it'd be a good time to join the SIG meetings and start talking about this. And then lastly, the reference doc generation tool currently is entirely custom written. But the Kubernetes APIs, it's open API spec. So there is tooling out there for this. So if anyone is familiar with the open API ecosystem, ideally, when we move forward with a rewrite, we'd be able to utilize existing tooling to make this generation a bit easier, rather than having it built completely from the ground up. Please help. We do know that the reference docs are a hugely utilized part of the documentation. Like, we have the analytics to see on the website how much they are looked at, and it's much like open source, it can blow over with a stiff breeze, and it doesn't even need a stiff breeze for this part of it. So that's where we are. I'm probably under time, but thank you. We can take questions. Help.
Microphone.